Hey, welcome back, Leveling Up Nation. This is your success story strategist, Brigham Blackham, and your host of the Leveling Up podcast. So grateful to be here. Today is a very special day. We have an awesome guest. Now, Jason Hunt is someone that I think you are going to absolutely love. He has a diverse background, but the reason that we called this episode the way that we did, which is the principal's office for speakers, is he's a former principal. And that experience has absolutely transformed the way that he thinks about his life, his business, how he's been able to make so much success as a speaker. Now, here's a little bit about Jason. He transformed common leaders into uncommon leaders by teaching tools and strategies that make leadership easier. His insights empower leaders across the nation, drawing from diverse experiences. As a CEO of I Squared Leadership and a certified speaking professional, he enriches lives speaking on over 100 stages per year. Amazing. So really grateful to have him on today. And I want to welcome you to the call. Welcome, Jason. How are you doing today?
Brigham, I'm absolutely fantastic, but you know what? I'm getting better.
Wonderful. We're all about getting better, leveling up every single day in every way.
Absolutely.
Well, Jason, tell us a little bit about your background. First, I'm so interested on your experience as a principal, how that has propelled you to become an amazing speaker. I mean, you are CSP, which is one of the highest designations in the National Speaker Organization. And now you're the president of, NSA in Minnesota. How did your principal experience propel you to be an amazing speaker?
Yeah, it's pretty simple, Brigham. Basically, I failed, and I failed miserably. And it's a story that I tell because I think people find that they connect to it pretty well. And in all of it, what we do, we have goals, we have dreams, we have aspirations, things that we want to be able to accomplish. And we get into the work, and sometimes we find that we're either not prepared, we're too young, we don't have the right tools or strategies, it's not a good fit, and it just doesn't work. And I found myself like that in year 2 of being a principal. So year 1 was fine, just like year 1 in basically any leadership position. People are going to be nice to you. They're going to do what you tell them to do. They're probably going to invite you to social events. Okay. And that's what they did in the first year for me. I thought it was amazing. I loved leadership. I went home. I was happy every day. I thought I could ride this thing out for the next 35 years and then retire from being a principal. And what happened in year 2 is the gloves came off. I'd realized that our culture was extremely toxic. Our teachers were not being nice to each other at all. We had some serious problems with student discipline and attendance. We were struggling with getting kids to come to school. And I'm a data junkie. So we looked through all the different standardized testing scores to be proud of something. And we just couldn't find anything. And I realized that although I didn't really create all those problems, honestly, I probably created some of them, but I didn't create all those problems. I realized that I was in charge, like I was a leader. So it was my job to try to help us navigate through that. And honestly, it was a mess. It got so bad that I was put on a performance improvement plan. My superintendent sat down with me and said, Jason, there needs to be a lot of things changing for you to continue in this job. And so we got to work through this plan. So it was pretty miserable there in year 2.
Wow. So that failure, or I like to think of a failure as, a fail is a faithful attempt in learning.
Yes.
While you have gone through that experience, you took ownership. I think that's a key takeaway from that story is, yes, you may not have caused all those problems, but you are responsible for them. And those challenges are something that anybody that is in your position needs to face full on and full front rather than say, well, I don't want to deal with that, so I'm going to let somebody else deal with it. What are some of the ways that you've been able to keep that mentality as a speaker to take responsibility and ownership?
Fantastic question. And you're absolutely right. Honestly, Brigham, and I like how you put this, like sometimes we want to run away from the problem. And that's exactly where I was at. I wanted to leave the problem. In fact, it got to the point where I wrote out my letter of resignation. It was late one night. I had a terrible day. All the staff had already gone home. I attached it to an email. I was ready to send it off to the superintendent to quit, to end this thing. And right before I hit send, I thought, it might be a good idea to talk to my wife before I do this. And so I did. I went home and I talked to her and she wouldn't let me quit. She's like, look, we got 4 kids. We have a mortgage. We need regular paycheck and we need healthcare. So you have to go to work. And that was the moment that I think I really did take responsibility, because the next day I went in with a different attitude. I was probably more humble, and I just went around and started asking people for feedback. I wanted to know, what could I do to get better as a leader? And overwhelmingly, the response was, just connect to us, Jason. You know, you're leading organizationally fine as far as your metrics and your strategies and your, you know, direction that you're trying to take us. All that's good, but you've not connected to any of us. And so we don't want to follow you. And to me, that was hurtful, first off, but it was a wake-up call, because that really was the essence of what leadership is. Leadership isn't about your products and your processes. Those are important. Of course, you have to know your stuff, but it's really about the people. And what happened with that is we then started to turn the school around. And I say we because it wasn't just me. I built some connections with people. We created some teams. I really started to understand this idea of influence, how leadership isn't really your title or your position. It's about your ability to get people to think or act differently. That's what influence is. Yeah. And so as we started to implement that, we did turn the school around to the place where we were getting some of the best results in all of Southern Minnesota. Teachers were requesting to come and work at our school. Again, it wasn't just me. We had a team working to get this done. It was a beautiful place. So I decided to leave after several years, because I wanted to go out into the world and help people not struggle as much as I did. I mean, it got so bad that I was hiding in a portable classroom, not wanting to face the realities of what my leadership responsibilities required. Many people probably fall in that category. And so what really drives me, the reason I have full ownership over that now, is because I know there are people out there, lots of them, thousands of them, because I've worked with them, that are struggling. Like, they want to do the leadership thing. They've been, you know, called upon to do it. Somebody tapped them on the shoulder and said, hey, we think we have trust in you. We believe in you. You can do this leadership thing. And they don't know how. Yeah. They're an amazing operator. They're amazing at some kind of technical job. They're really good at some specific thing that they're hired to do. And now they're in leadership. So it's less about processes, less about products, and more about people. And they're stuck. And so I take that ownership. Like, every day I've got this vision board. It's above my shower. And I look at that, and I read self-affirmations, and I look at pictures and images that I put up there to remind myself that at the end of the day, what is it about? I want to help people to avoid their portable classroom. I want to help people to have the skills and the tools that are necessary to succeed and thrive and actually like leadership. And you can, if you have the right tools.
Beautiful. If you have the right tools, you follow the right principles, and you do it consistently. And I loved how you brought up the importance of connection. A lot of leaders, they have the right skill set as far as how to get the systems, the processes. They've done the personal development side, but they don't always take the time to actually do a check-in and figure out, how are you doing on the personal side? Mm-hmm. How is life at home? What's going on? Because a lot of times those influence everything you do at work. And if they're dealing with, like, their mother passing away, or they're dealing with a kid that's in some trauma, there's a split focus, and that's not going to be able to, you're not going to be able to understand every single element of why they're acting the way they are. Mm-hmm. If you can't see them as a person, and all you're seeing is a metric. Yeah. So when you're looking at leadership, what are some of those affirmations or some of the things that you said are on that vision board that have helped you consistently get a little bit better every day?
Yeah, thank you. So things that really drive me, things that I kind of repeat back to myself. Zig Ziglar was probably the pioneer when it came to motivational speaking. Yeah, he passed away quite a while ago, but a hero of mine. I call him a mentor. So one of the things that I have up on my vision board are my 13 mentors. I've only met a couple of them. Many of them are dead, but they're all people that started and developed a business like I want to do. For example, like Zig Ziglar. And one of the mantras that I read every day is, if you help enough other people get what they want, you'll get what you want. I call that getfluence. So my specialty is influence. You can see in my tagline here, influencing for impact. That's where I spend all of my time. I believe there are 4 components to influence. And so I really have dived into this. And I truly do believe that if you help enough other people get what they want, you will get what you want. So what do my people want? They want to be able to transition and have success as a leader. They want an outstanding speaker that can engage an audience and uplift them and carry them through an emotional, roller coaster, but leave them on a high with this just degree of hope that is possible. They want somebody who's going to be timely, somebody that gives back, somebody who's going to really care and be involved with their audience instead of I'm showing up and gathering a paycheck, right? And so all these thoughts come to my mind as I read just that one sentence to myself, because it means so much more than just what Zig said, because I've tried to internalize it and personalize it into my daily routine. And honestly, like, all my affirmations do that. They're just little things that are triggers for me that help me get into the right mental state so that I can go and approach my day, whether it be a day like today, which is an office day. So I'm doing some planning. I'll put together a YouTube video later on. I'm doing some contacting and some networking, or a day when I'm going to be on a stage or working with a group or doing some training. Doesn't matter what's happening in my day. These things get me in the right mindset.
Beautiful. Mindset's so important. One of the things that I was very impressed with as far as doing some research on you was you said you, as a very young man, at 19 years old, as a missionary, you were able to go out there and actually lead a congregation of 100 people. Can you talk about how, even in your youth, having that type of a responsibility was able to impact you moving forward?
Yeah, Brigham, I think that we are the sum of everything's happened to us, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes I think we get in our heads this idea of what we want to become, and it's usually a conglomeration of several people that have done amazing things, and we put them all together into one person, and we try to be that. And honestly speaking, that's impossible. Like, you can't do that. There's no perfect leader out there, for example, or a perfect speaker out there. We all have to be our own individuals, and we have to grab onto that. Like, we have to take ownership and be authentic about who we really are. Like, when I get on stage and I share my story about felt leadership, I get people's heads nodding like, oh yeah, no, I understand that. In fact, I purposely pause during my story to allow my audience to talk to their neighbor and share a time when they've been stuck and what feelings they've felt, because we all get to that place. So everything we've done in our life builds up to who we are, and we have to take pride in that. Like, we have to recognize that that is who we are. So at 19 years old, in our church, we have an opportunity to go and serve a 2-year mission, and we don't get to choose where to go. It's given to us by some of our prophetic leaders. And so I was there on my front porch step. I had all my family around, and I was opening up, they call it a calling. I was opening up these papers, and it tells you where you're going to go. And I read Novosibirsk, Siberia, Russia. And instantly my dad looked at me and he's like, what did you do? Because he thought I did something terrible when I was younger, and this is my punishment. But honestly, Brigham, it was an amazing opportunity, because I got over there and it gave me leadership responsibilities. Here's the deal in Russia. For 70 years, they lived under communist rule, which taught people to fall in line or you're going to die or be sent to some crazy gulag. So people are really, really good at following orders in Russia. Even today, they're amazing at following orders. However, being the person that has the original idea, or being the person that stands up and takes charge or makes a decision, that is not something easy for a Russian, because for 70 years, those people were the outcasts. Those people were taken away from society. And so even at the early age of 19, I didn't know much about leadership, but I was kind of forced into it because I did know how to make some decisions. I did have the confidence to step forward and take charge on some things. And since people were so willing to follow that kind of a leader, I just kind of naturally went into that kind of leadership. And it taught me a lot of things. One thing is I think I led more by being a dictator, because that's what they wanted. Later, I learned that doesn't work, at least in our culture here in America. In Russia, it may still work. I don't know. It did for me at that time. But when I came back and I tried to use the same kinds of leadership skills when I was in college, I was in a couple of clubs and whatnot, and I tried to lead through that. It didn't work. It didn't work at all. So it gave me confidence. It got me in front of people. I had to speak in front of people, which was a big deal, especially considering what I do now. And it also kind of helped me understand that there are differences when it comes to cultures. Just like today, when I get in front of audiences, there are differences in audiences, what they're expecting for the speaker on stage.
Wow. I love that. The sum of your experiences in life make up who you are. Very profound. One of the things that also impresses me is that you've been able to build your career to the point where you are averaging like 100 stages per year. Let's talk about the principles that you have to apply consistently to be that type of overnight success.
Yeah. First off, I'll correct you. It's not an overnight success.
Well, that's why I said it the way I did, because it takes years to be able
Oh
to
my
develop
gosh,
that
it
type of
does.
pipeline, right? It's
I
not an
figured you were
overnight
probably
thing.
pretty intentional with that word. What do they say? Champions are only recognized in the ring.
Yeah.
Right. It's a tremendous amount of work. So I've been at doing this business full time for 8 years. And when I say full time, I'm talking 50 hours a week at least. When I first started, it was probably closer to 60 or 70. And at that point, I was just doing anything I possibly could do to get in front of a group. I sent messages to every single Rotary Club within 120 miles of my house, just because I knew Rotary clubs usually meet on a weekly basis, and they usually need a speaker, and they'll pretty much take anybody. And generally speaking, they're a whole bunch of old nice guys. So they're just going to give you a bunch of kudos about showing up, no matter how terribly you might have presented. But you have to get the repetitions in to be good at what you want to do, to set yourself apart from others, to make a difference in the industry you're trying to make a difference in. You have to get the reps. There is no way around that. There, again, champions are only recognized in the ring. So people will look at me now and say, gosh, you know, that you're president of NSA Minnesota. You do speak over 100 times per year. You are making X number of dollars per year, you know, and all these things. Yeah, I am. And it feels really good. But it took a long time to get there. And I know that in a moment's notice, it can be gone. COVID, for example, destroyed the speaking and training industry. I was lined up for an amazing year, and suddenly 3.5 months of work was just gone, like just taken off the table. And I'll remind you, I still have 4 kids and I still have a mortgage to pay, right? So that was difficult. And how did I work through it? Just going back to the fundamentals of building a business, which is making connections with people, continuing to make sure your pipeline's full, providing crazy good value to people through your newsletters and social posts, making sure that every single time you show up to do something, you give 110%, making it so it's not about you, but it's about other people. I don't sell from the stage. I'm just good on the stage. And I've tried really hard to get good on the stage, not because I need the accolades. Granted, they feel good, but because I want people to have a really good experience. I want that meeting planner that hires me to say, oh my gosh, that was fun. I want people to go up to the meeting planner to ask that person, where in the heck did you find this Jason Hunt, right? That's what I want, because when that happens, I know that I'm adding value. When that happens, I know that I'm contributing to people's lives. So I'm helping them in whatever struggles they might be going through. So every day you have to maintain these relationships. Every day I'm sending out emails, I'm picking up the phone, I'm having meetings. Every time I do an event, I'm looking for opportunities to make connections before I even get on stage. You know, I'll walk around to the tables. You know, let's say I was just at an event last week in Kentucky, and there were about 700 people in the audience. So a big room, lots of tables that were all around on rounds. I was one of the first people to kind of go up. And so this was before the meeting started. They're sitting down, they're having their breakfast. I'm spending 45 minutes just hopping from table to table, talking to people, getting to know what's bothering them in their jobs, getting to know what they love about the work that they're doing, getting to an understanding of why they keep showing up. It's in the senior care industry, which is not a good, you know, it's hard work. It's difficult work. You don't get paid super well, and you really have to have a heart for it. And when I can do that, then when I'm on stage, I can tailor it exactly to what I heard, right? I can call their names out in the middle of my message and like, wait a minute, he remembers my name, you know, and why do I do all that? Because I want to make an impact. I just want to be able to build that connection, right? Get the influence with people so that when I share tools and strategies, they can trust me enough to go back to their workplaces and put those into practice. I know they're going to work. I just need to get them to the place where they're convinced that they can make them work.
Wow. I guess transferring that belief is one of the biggest jobs of a speaker. Saying, not only can you believe me what I'm saying, but you can believe in these principles. You can take the action. I loved how you brought up that you need to get in the reps as a speaker to be able to articulate your message in a way that's meaningful. And spending that time with your audience beforehand, you're like priming the pump of impact to let them have a mind that's ready. I have this idea that I learned from the comprehensible input, which is a modality of language learning. It's the idea that if you take a sponge and it's already full, you can pour more water on it, but it didn't actually get more saturated. You have to squeeze that sponge out so that when they're ready, you pour that water in and it can actually make an impact.
Yeah.
I think that's what you did when you're connecting with people beforehand. What are some of the ways that you've been able to make an impact, not just on stage, but after you've built this connection? What are ways you follow up? What are ways that you connect with people long term? Because it's not, to run a business, it's not just a one and done thing.
No.
You have to consistently connect with people. So let's hear your principles on that.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Brigham. So this goes back to my days of education. And I learned in education that a kid can show up for a class, in a day, and I'll give a lecture, we'll do some kind of activity or some kind of piece of group work. And the next day they show up and they might not remember anything we did the day before. Or if they remember, it's a small little sliver. I'm like, what's going on here? And I learned very quickly as an educator that not only do we need to put in repetitions as a professional to get better at our craft, but your participants, whatever participants means, if this is your clients, if this is, for me, my audience, if this is for, as an educator, your students, whoever your participants are, they have to get in the reps too. Like they have to apply it, and you need to come back to them over and over and over with the ideas and strategies and tools for it to really make sense. So there's several things that I do. Number one, I provide resources during the middle of my presentation. So one of my principles is called give a crap. If you want to build influence with people, you have to give a crap about people. And people laugh at that. They're like, it's funny, and it is a catchy phrase, but I break that down and say crap stands for celebrate, recognize, appreciate, and praise. That is every single day, intentionally, you need to find some way to celebrate, recognize, appreciate, and praise. Well, sometimes people are like, okay, well, what do I do, Jason? And so I've created what I call 100 days of crap, and I'll throw a QR code up on the screen, and they can download that 100 days of crap, which gives them 100 different ways of giving a crap. For example, you can crap in a meeting, which means in the middle of a meeting, just stop and celebrate, recognize, appreciate, or praise somebody. Like, hey, oh my gosh, I really appreciate that. Let's stop. Can we just recognize how cool of an idea that is? Like, we need to really give kudos to so-and-so because that's an amazing idea. Crap locally, which means go down to your gift shops in your local town, find some cool little trinkets, buy them, and give them to your staff. Timely crap, which means that, you're going to find the individual is just always on time for everything. They get the reporting done on time. They're on time for their meetings. They show up on time, whatever. So that person you're going to celebrate, recognize, appreciate, or praise. So I put a QR code up there for two reasons. Number one, they get instant access to that resource, which increases the likelihood that they'll actually intentionally give a crap every day. Number two, it also subscribes them to my newsletter. And I'm not a big mass spammer. In fact, very rarely do I ever try to sell anything in my newsletter. It's just a value add. Once or twice a month, I send something out. Sometimes it's a video, sometimes it's a short blog, but it's a reminder of key principles that I'm always teaching. Oh, here's another take on that. You know what? When it comes to this piece, when it comes to the connection piece of building influence, here's a tool for connecting. Oh my gosh, courage is a major piece of building influence of people. So here's an example of courage that I saw with somebody I was working with, right? So there's a newsletter piece. In addition to that, I usually will do a follow-up video for each of my meeting planners. Now they can choose to send them out to the audience or not. Some do, some don't. It's totally their choice. But I feel like part of my responsibility in making sure that we're having impact is I need to put that together. So I do a video for that piece. And then for anybody that's ready to take it to the next level, not only do I do speaking, but a good chunk of my business is training. And training is where a company organization is interested in taking this to the next level. We organize a training program. Usually it's in 3-hour blocks once a month for the span of about 8 or 10 months. And then we throw some follow-up and usually try to round it out at a year. So it's a year commitment, more or less, for most organizations that I work with. We do 3-hour blocks once a month. I assign homework. There's follow-up pieces in between. There's accountability buddies that are built within this so that they know they're going to be held accountable. And that's where we see real transformative change in those leaders that, we're an amazing operator and now have no idea how to lead a team. That's what we see. That's where we really see significant change.
Wow. So what I'm hearing is it's not just about the speech. Great speaking is not just here's impact for a moment. You give them 100 days of crap. I love that. So celebrate, recognize, appreciate, and praise. I'm going to steal that. I'm going to give you attribution until I forget. A couple of years down the road, that's how it goes. As a speaker, you use it long enough, you're like, oh, it just makes mine. But no, I love that. Celebrate, recognize, appreciate, and praise. 100 days of that stuff. And then the follow-up recap. That's a very unique take on making sure that your message lands for your audience. And then they can have a digital asset that they can go back to if they're like, oh, who was that speaker? And they go back and watch your video.
Yep.
It's tailored to them. That's beautiful. And then these trainings, I feel like so many trainers, they do one day, maybe like a VIP day. And then they're like, well, you got all the things. Let's be done. A whole year commitment, though. A lot can happen in a year. What are some of the ways that you've been able to take these principles that you've discovered over years and simplify them so that people will actually take action, so that they eliminate the stress of wondering which thing to do and say, this is the thing that I choose. This is the focus.
Yeah. You're correct in regards to training. A lot of people will come in and do 1 day or 2 day or 3 day training seminars. And that's cool. Some people enjoy that. Speakers and trainers really like that because it usually means a lot of money and it's all put in one little piece and then you're done. I call that spray and pray. You're going to spray them with a lot of information and pray that they take something home. It's not good. It doesn't work. It does not align with any research on adult learning. It just doesn't. Is it harder to build a relationship and keep that relationship going on for an entire year with a group of or an organization? Yeah, right. Is it harder to do it in 3-hour segments instead of 3 days consecutively? Yeah, quite a bit. Is it harder to do the follow-up through emails and hold people accountable and have further discussion? Completely. But going back to some of my mantras, I'm not here for the money. I'm not here for the kudos. I'm here to make a difference in people's lives. I want to help people not find their portable classroom. So to me, it's a moral commitment. That's how I have to do it. And to answer your question, it's an amazing way to break things down into simple, practical steps that people can follow. For example, our whole first session is called Give a Crap. That's all we talk about for 3 hours, right? Different ways to do that, which includes valuing the voice. You're going to make sure that you listen to and actively pursue the voice of each individual. That's giving a crap. It includes making sure that we're honoring the absent. That is, when somebody's not present, we're not gossiping behind their back. And I give them some strategies and ideas on how to do that. So our homework between that and the next month is just find ways to give a crap every day. And I give them a sheet to keep track of it on. And they got to write this stuff down. And when they come back to our second session, I hold them accountable. I'm like, all right, pull out your sheets. Turn to somebody you're sitting next to. Talk about what happened. Oh, your sheet's only halfway done. All right, I'm going to give you permission to slap your partner in the face. Not really. But we're serious about trying to create change and growth. So I think doing it over the course of time simplifies it. I think, my model, I break influence down to 4 components: care, connection, collaboration, and courage. That's all it is. Of course, there's hundreds of books on influence and leadership and thousands of principles and ideas. But if I can give them the model of saying, all right, we're going to spend a day on care. We're going to spend 2 days on how to connect with people. We're going to spend the rest of our time on, we're going to spend like 3 days on collaborating with people. And then we'll spend a day on how to have courage with people. Then they're like, oh, okay, now there's a framework, right? There's a model in regards to how we're moving through this idea of influence. And then within that, I provide tools. And I try as best as I can to make these unique or something that's memorable. Like Give a Crap, for example. I have one called Mind Your Monkeys. So Mind Your Monkeys is my session that I use when we talk about delegation and making sure that once you've delegated a task, that you don't take the task back, because people will come to you with questions. They'll come to you with problems. And what do leaders love most? They love to solve problems. They love to have the answer. And you're stripping away a learning opportunity for your employees. Don't do that, right? When you've passed your monkey on, that's their monkey, not your monkey. So they can come to you with a question, but you got to reverse the question. Okay, that is a good question. What do you think we should do about that? Hey, you know what? I have 3 ideas on how to solve this. Let me give you 3 ideas. You choose the one you think is best, right? We're keeping the ownership on their back. I call that mind your monkeys. I have another session called Teach Them to Fish, which is all about coaching and how we can do one-on-ones and what we can do to do a better job of making sure that our employees are setting the agenda for their own learning and growth, how they can become better critical thinkers. And so it's based on the principle of you can give a man a fish and feed him for a day, or teach him to fish and feed him for a lifetime. So we just create these metaphors. We create these little catchy sayings. And now, you know, when I finish up with a training group and I just say the word monkey, they know exactly what I'm talking about. When I say the word fish, they know what I'm talking about. When I say CPR, which is an acronym we use for how to begin the hard conversations, because we want to save the relationship, we don't want to destroy it, they know what I'm talking about, right? So I just have these little kind of mnemonic devices, I guess maybe you'll call them, that help them remember so that I can give these little clues, and it just draws back exactly the principles we learned.
Now I need to know what CPR stands for. And I feel like the R is probably relationships, did I guess right?
No, this is actually a 3-step process. Good guess, though. Good guess. 3-step process. So Brigham, let's say that you know, you've been a little negative in our team meetings recently, and it's time for me to address some of that negativity. All right, which is one of the hardest things for leaders to do, because it might not be, you know, there's not a whole lot of tangible evidence. But whatever it is, you're not meeting performance expectations for one reason or another. 3-step process. Clarify the expectation, step 1. So we sit down on a one-on-one. Hey, Brigham, thanks for coming in today. Look, this is going to be a harder conversation. First, let me just clarify what the expectation is for all of our employees. We are a positive, optimistic organization. Like, we look at the cup as half full. That's just what we do. We've set the tone that way from the very beginning, and it's what we expect all of our employees to do. Clarify expectation. Second piece. Present, this is the P, CP, present your thoughts or ideas. Brigham, I've noticed in the past couple of meetings we've been in that some of the statements you've made seem to be negative. They seem to bring the team down. For example, in our last team meeting, here's a statement you made, and as I looked around the room, I saw 4 people roll their eyes. Right? So I'm presenting my thoughts, my findings, whatever the data happens to be. Maybe you're late all the time. Hey, I've noticed over the past 3 weeks, you've been late 5 times more than 10 minutes. You know, what do they do? So clarify the expectation, present your thoughts or findings, and then the R is raise a question. Brigham, just help me understand what's going on. This should take about 30 seconds to do. And what happens is, 1, the expectation is clarified. 2 is they know where I'm coming from, but I've not made final judgments yet. And 3 is you get an opportunity to share your side of the story.
Beautiful.
And
that's
it creates
a really simple
right?
framework, and it's easy to remember. I think that's awesome. So here's what I'm hearing from you, Jason. As a speaker, it's not just here's the raw motivation. It's if you want to make lasting impact, you want to influence people long term, you have to actually give a crap, and you have to do the work to understand where they're coming from and connect with them on not just a physiological, psychological level, but literally as a whole person. You need to know where they're coming from. Am I catching that right?
Yeah, exactly. And what's interesting about this, Brigham, when you look at the speaking industry, it's significantly changed even in the last decade. It used to be that you could get up there and you really didn't have to connect to your audience too much. You did your rah, you know, everybody can be an amazing leader and we're done. Audiences don't want that anymore. Audiences don't, like, they're looking, it's interesting. So the length of speeches is decreasing. Think about TED Talks, right? So the length is decreasing. They want you to speak for less time. They want more interactivity. In other words, I don't want you up on stage for an hour just blah, blah, blahing to the audience. I need you to engage them. Not just engage, but actually have them do some kind of interactive involvement, have them stand up, have them move around, have them in, you know, I went to one and they break a board. Like, literally he teaches you how to break a board, and you karate chop a board, right? That's what they're looking for, is that kind of stuff. And they expect you to completely understand their audience, like what the challenges are in the industry, what the benefits are of being in the industry, what the daily routine of individuals in that, the titles and responsibilities of the people that are in the audience. I mean, they want you to understand all of that, which is a large task. But thankfully, there's things like ChatGPT that makes it a little bit simpler for people like me.
So as you're getting into like the demographics, the psychographics, truly understanding your audience, what are some of the principles that you've been able to deploy to be able to make that connection before you get on stage? Because after it's on stage, you just have to interact with the people that are there. What's your preparation look like?
Yeah. So preparation, once somebody decides to commit with me, we get on a virtual call, and I have a series of questions that I ask, and I put the meeting into what I call my crock pot thinking. All right. So I use OneNote to keep track of all of my speaking and training events. And I have a whole category, a whole book called Crockpot Thinking. And this is all the activities that are coming up in my training and speaking world. And so I ask a lot of questions in the forefront to get an understanding from the meeting planner and whoever else might be on the call to understand, what's really going on in the industry. I take notes, I throw it in there, and just like a crock pot, I let it stew. I go back to it once in a while. I'm like, oh yeah. Or, I'll be driving somewhere, flying somewhere. I'll be out on a run or something like that. I'm like, oh, here's an idea that might work well. Not that I'm significantly shifting my message. My message more or less is pretty close to the same, but there's little pieces there that if you just do the slight little, customization, if you will, you can really grab an audience. So I'm looking for that. I try to interview a couple of the folks before we actually go in. And I especially do this on training because training is a larger commitment. So I'll ask for some names of people I could call up and just get a sense of what their day looks like. In addition to that, anything I can find online, I do it. I literally do use ChatGPT. It's amazing what that can do. You can just say, hey, I'm going to be speaking to such and such association coming next February. And I'm really curious, what is this association about? Why do people join this association? When people join the association, what kind of benefits do they get from their membership in the association? What kind of titles and positions do people usually join when they join this association? What does a day in the life look like for this particular kind of individual? What are the reasons why this person might enjoy their job? What challenges might they face in their regular work? If you were to put together some top leadership tips or principles for people in this kind of association, what would you put together, right? So I'm just going on and on and on. And it's crazy. Like I literally use AI as a thinking partner. It's crazy the responses you get. So that really prepares me. And then about a week and a half before the event, I'll do another virtual call. I'll solidify my thoughts. So this isn't a time to learn. This is a time to saying, hey, if I understand your audience well, this is what they're looking for. And if I get the oh my gosh, yes, could you do that? Like if I get that response, I know I'm spot on. Like I know I did my homework well. And then of course, when I show up at the event, I do the thing before. I actually do speaking. So I go around and I talk to people. If they have, the day before, they might do some kind of social or networking thing. I'll try to show up to that and just build some relationships there.
Amazing. I think that was my favorite part from the whole thing. I'm so glad I asked that question. So I am so grateful for the time we had to spend together. Amazing principles, awesome insight from experience, which that's exactly what we're looking for. I hope that you guys got a ton of value from this. And Jason, where can people go to find you? And we only have a moment. So one 30-second, where can people go to find it?
Yeah. So just go on to influencingforimpact.com. You can see it in my tagline there, influencingforimpact.com. I'm on all social medias. My daughter runs TikTok even. So I'm on TikTok and Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube and wherever you can find me. Short little videos, longer videos, blogs, everything you can find. More resources in regards to speaking or training, influencingforimpact.com.
Awesome. Go check Jason out. He's amazing. Thank you so much for your time. God bless, guys. And we'll see you again next time. Like and subscribe. Keep following. And remember, every single day, do something that will level up your life, your business, your speaking career, because we want to take you from the page to the stage. Have a great day. God bless.